Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
What a buzzkill here on a casual Friday. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studios. Not about one game or a couple of games. It's about a reoccurring nightmare against your rival who's laughing. A&M losing yesterday in the SEC tournament to the University of Texas, the 13th rated team in the conference, I should say, in a game where I don't think A&M looked like the better team at all, except for a little short stint. We're going to talk all about it this morning here, and I know their season will be defined by what they do, in March. But right now, bitter pill to swallow. Let's go to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. Olin Buchanan was there in Nashville for the entire game. OB, good morning, man.
Yeah, good morning, David.
Kind of echo my sentiments. Just
Yeah, tough loss. You know, I kind of agree they didn't look like the better team. Texas was more desperate, and of course that helps them. And yet, you know, A&M had more turnovers, or had a lot of turnovers. Missed a lot of free throws, made a lot of free throws, but missed a lot, and yet was in a position. Not only could they have won the game, they should have won the game.
Yeah.
And that's some of the things that's alarming to me is in a crunch time. Look, Wade Taylor made 17 of 18 free throws. The rest of the team shot 45% at the foul line. So when the game is on the line, I don't understand why you don't seek him out to get him the ball. Why some guys just, I'm gonna take it on myself. Well, especially when they're not making shots. So that's something I just can't figure out. But look, if there's not a timeout that takes away a Wade Taylor 3-pointer, you got a 7-point lead with a minute 20 to go.
Yeah,
that doesn't guarantee victory, but it sure puts you in control. A&M missed free throws at the most inopportune times. And the defense, again, had some problems. So it's if it was any opponent other than Texas, we'd be saying, okay, you know, that's in your rearview mirror, forget it. It doesn't really matter because you're going to the NCAA tournament anyway, and we've always said, it's always the truth, no matter what happens, you're going to be judged as Texas A&M as a team, and quite frankly, Buzz as a coach, by what you do in March, in late March, in March Madness. But the fact remains, that was Texas, and you never, be disingenuous to say it doesn't matter when you lose to Texas. It always matters.
OB, I agree with you that you're going to be judged on what happens in March, but this loss is going to linger because this is an inferior Texas team to you, perceived inferior, and the results would bear that, except the head-to-head. You lost to them 2 out of 3 times, and you cannot, at least as a fan, ignore what has happened over the last 12 months, right? It is part of the story. When we talk about this rivalry, go ahead.
Well, that's true. Again, you can't diminish what it means to play Texas and beat Texas. But I would contend that if A&M wins their first 2 games in the NCAA tournament, nobody's going to be worried about what happened against Texas.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm too close to the moment. I think I'm still going to be thinking about it just because of how it's happened and the scoreboard that they're going to have for the year when it comes to basketball. But a couple things. I didn't have a problem with Buzz's timeout. I wish he didn't call it, by the way, because Wade obviously hit the shot a few seconds later. But I didn't have a problem with the timeout. I did have a problem with that play. Now, his out of timeout play call, what was it, in regulation, the C.J. Wilshire play where he hit the big three, that was a beautifully designed play. Everything about it.
Yes, it was. Give credit where credit is due. It was excellent.
That was my brother texted me right before that play, and he asked me how A&M is out of timeouts. I go, sometimes they draw up a beautiful play, and that was that sometime, and that was like beautiful offense. Everything about it, the way he ran through the paint, came back around, I loved it. The play in overtime, I think it was the first overtime. Second overtime? First overtime, right?
First overtime.
Yeah, the play in the first overtime. I just didn't I didn't understand. You had 7 seconds on the shot clock, and you're going towards the. It wasn't a desperation moment.
Right, you're in a really not even tight game. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was tight, but you had a 4-point lead at the time, and there's 7 seconds on the shot clock, and even though you have an advantage, I mean, it's still it's still a really pivotal time in the game, and you try a lob for an alley-oop from the sideline inbounds. The percentage of success on a play like that has to be minimal. So you would have been better off, I would have thought, getting the ball in, getting it back to Wade, and then living with whatever happens. You would have been better off if you would have had a shot clock violation because you would have lost 7 seconds. Hey, how much seconds were left on the clock when Texas scored the dunk to put it back into the second overtime? 4 seconds. Now, I'm not saying everything would have happened the same way.
Right.
Things change. But that's just the point I'm making is that I'm agreeing with you. That was just an odd play to come out with. But I would say this. You can't – I know you know the rules. You can't call the timeout as A&M unless you have control of the ball. And it was on the floor. It was scrambling. But then they came up with Henry Coleman came up with possession of the ball. By the time he gets it, there's around 8 to 10 seconds. Passes out to Wade. They're already calling the timeout. In what scenario are you going to be in a better position than when you have to get a bucket in the last 7 or 8 seconds than with the ball in Wade Taylor's hands?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you want? So I don't understand why you'd call the timeout in that situation. But I will say this. I can remember a game a couple of years ago. I can't remember the opponent, but it was a big game. And Buzz called the timeout because I think Solomon Washington was about to shoot a 3. And it was the right call. And they won the game. I just think that,
yeah,
for better or worse, put the ball in Wade Taylor's hands and live with it.
By the way, brilliant performance from Wade Taylor. He's had an up and down season for his standards, at least statistically. That was brilliant. That was the Wade Taylor that we've seen so many times. He was brilliant. And if I were to tell you, OB, that Anderson Garcia had a double-double with 13 points, 4 for 4 from the 3, and Manny Obaski was the March Manny that we saw last year, and Wade Taylor had that performance, there's no way you think A&M loses to Texas.
No, but they got almost nothing from Pharrell Payne, which was surprising. Zurich Phelps missed. I think he was 3 of 19. And then again, the defense just didn't get it done.
Yeah.
Not to their standards. I give a lot of credit for that to Texas because they have some good shooters over there. But there was times when they were just beating A&M on defense. They were just getting around them for layups, So they had their moments. They played with desperation, and I'm not saying A&M didn't. I still think A&M's the better team and should have won the game. But we said the other day, if A&M loses, they'll have to help Texas, and I think they did.
By the way, no, it wasn't a good game. I got texts from friends that support Texas, and they were trying to be nice, saying, hey, man, that was a heck of a game, though. No, don't text me after a heck of a game. It's never a good game for the fan of the team that just lost. It's not. I don't want to hear from you. It's not a good game. It's only a good game when when two teams are involved and your team wins. It sucks if not. I'm sorry. Like, I don't need to hear from my buddies, hey, man, it was a great game, though. Props to you guys for fighting to the... No, it wasn't a good game. It sucked.
It was an exciting game. It was a thrilling game. It was an edge of your seat kind of game.
Yeah.
But I thought, quite frankly, Texas played well.
Yeah.
And I thought A&M played below its standards.
Trey Johnson, it looked, again, another game where it looks like they've maybe got him contained, and then he just breaks out. I mean, he's an excellent player, no doubt. But it wasn't just him. Shamon Mark, until he fouled out, was just, I felt like every time he took a shot, I know he missed the big one at regulation, but
then,
sorry?
Yeah, he did.
But he was fantastic. Shedrick also, what was it, 1.9 of 9 from the free throw line? Like, just incredible. But, you know, you look at A&M's stat lines, the top guys and the others, then you go inside the numbers. And in the first half, by the way, Texas doing a great job on the boards.
Yeah, A&M did a much better job on the boards in the second half and in overtime. But so they did end up not dominant, having a clear advantage on the boards at the end. But yeah, there were times when Texas was doing really well on the boards. Now, I think another thing that was alarming to me, and A&M in the second half really cut it down, but Texas had a significant advantage on points in the paint. And a lot of those were just beating A&M's defense on driving layups. You know, getting around the first guy that was guarding, just getting around him. But I think it was 32-20 at the end of the game. But like in the first half, it was something like, I don't have 18-4. Yeah. Something like that.
All right, this is TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. At the current moment, I am in the Holistic Planning Cool Zone. If you want to invest in pro sports, that's the place to go to, investinprosports.com. They can take care of your investments, your tax, and your estate planning. And again, you can go to investinprosports.com, and they will help you with that. If you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us up on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. That number, 979-693-1150. You can text that number as well. How deflating was that loss yesterday to Texas? And have you changed your opinion on what March can look like now because of that loss? We'll talk about that at 979-693-1150. We go around the room. We talk to the people. Behind the glass is Nick Savage.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up?
Well, deflating is a good word. I typically don't get too high or low with wins and losses. I got a little upset about that one, more than I typically do last night for sure. But then again, you kind of have to remind yourself, give yourself a little bit of perspective. I know Aggies probably don't want to hear it, but you got the bigger, more important tournament coming up, right? This one was kind of just, could improve your resume a little bit. Maybe hurt it just a bit, teeny tiny bit, but I think you're still on that 3-seed line. So I don't know how much you really got hurt in that loss. So, bigger tournament coming up next week. And I think that's what, this Aggie basketball team should be focused on.
OB, you got to get to, Sweet 16 would be great. And I don't think we'll forget and move, but we can certainly move on. We'll start moving on here in a couple of minutes, right? At some point, you move on from that loss and look at once the pairings are announced and who you're going to be able to play against in the first round, hopefully second round and beyond. Right now, though, in the moment, it feels like, man, you best make an Elite Eight. So I don't think about this game during the offseason.
Well, I've always felt like, again, like we said earlier, you're going to be judged on what you did this year in the tournament this year. And A&M has been to the Sweet 16 a couple of times, several times, and in fact fired a coach that got you there twice. So I think the goal to call this a successful season is the Sweet 16. I think one win in the tournaments, I mean, it's nice, but that's expected. So at least get to where you've always been, and to make it a great season, go somewhere you haven't been, which would be the Elite Eight or further. And quite frankly, and that's what I was trying to convey in my column from the game yesterday, is I saw in that game, I saw a performance of a team on the one hand that is good enough to take me to the Sweet 16 and beyond. They did that. I had a guy scoring 29 points. I had another guy who's not supposed to hit threes going 4 for 4. They were rebounding. I had guys with double doubles. A guy coming off that typically doesn't score a lot. Manny was getting back into it. But then I saw that team that can almost self-destruct at times, and it's a team that says that they could lose in the first round. So it's just, man, this team's like the ultimate roulette. It's high risk, high reward.
Texas reminded me of what A&M sometimes looks like in March, the way they played that game, to be honest with you. Not different level of player, but they look like a team that is playing for their postseason lives. They recognize it, and they're trying to seize the moment.
Yeah, and you're right. We've seen that from A&M, and we saw it last year in the tournament. Mm-hmm. We definitely saw it in Tampa a couple of years ago. That said, look, A&M played hard, and again, they were in position to win the game. They had a chance to take the lead in regulation and missed a free throw.
Yep.
With 20 seconds. It might have been enough to win the game. A&M this season has quite often and quite honestly made some huge plays in the most clutch situations. Yesterday, they didn't.
Yep. Well, and when you play in these tight games, right, the margin of error, I mean, you're not always going to hit last-second threes.
Right.
And so the margin of error is so thin. Let's listen to Buzz Williams, who basically, I'm going to sum up what you're about to hear, but basically he said he's got to kind of detach himself and kind of analyze it after to really give his full thoughts on what happened. But here's Buzz post-game last night.
Yeah, I try to handle the emotion of it the right way. I think anytime you play a game that's a one-possession game for 50 minutes, there's a lot of exhaustion, not just physically but mentally. And then you're always, I don't, but a lot of our staff is trying to figure out the logistics. And so because I don't have all the information, we'll try to figure out how to handle the weekend the appropriate way. And then based on what happens on Sunday, we'll decide how to handle the week, whether we play Thursday or Friday. Do we travel Tuesday? Do we travel Wednesday? So I don't think that for me, post-game, after all that transpired over the last 3.5 hours, it was the appropriate time to answer it.
That's Buzz Williams yesterday post-game. And I'm going to go back to a line that I've used many times, OB, before we hit a break. That particular game does not change the way I think this team can play in the NCAA tournament. They are still very capable of all the things we've talked about. That particular loss, though, does sting a little bit differently. That's it.
Because of the opponent.
Yep. And the history, right? The opponent is based on the history. So, yep. Let's do this, OB. Let's hit a break. I know how you would feel better. I do. Like, there are multiple things. Obviously, seeing Irma would make you happy, hanging out with Quinn, and maybe all three of you guys heading down on the way to Snook to 1775.
Yeah, see, that would be the ultimate trifecta. Irma, Quinn, and 1775 barbecue. What could go better than that? Eating food you love with people you love and at a place you love to go, 1775.
And on this particular day, OB, I'm going to be like, today, no carnivore diet for you. Yes, you can carnivore it, but I want you to pick a carbolicious plate as well. So go ahead, pick your items.
Well, of course, the carb I would take would be that queso mac and cheese from 1775. There's not a better side dish in the world.
And then the carnivore portion of your diet?
Oh, well, to me, I love pork ribs, but I'd have to go with the sampler so I could get some of those pork ribs and some of that jalapeno cheese sausage because I didn't get enough cheese in the queso mac and cheese. And then that succulent brisket and even, watch the weight a little bit with the turkey.
Well, it is $17.75. They're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. 1775txbbq.com is the website to check it out. And if you want to call them up, 979-492-6241.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Obi, I'm going to read you a note from the YouTube page. Randy, who's a loyal listener, he's actually a Texas fan, very polite guy, says, Taylor was not elite Nuño. He's inefficient and isn't a great facilitator. I thought he had an elite stat line and hit some big shots, Obi.
Made 29 points. I don't care how you get them. He had a lot of... he didn't shoot a great percentage. A lot of times he had shots blocked while he was trying to drive. But a lot of the times those shots were blocked, went out of bounds, and it was still A&M's ball, and he'd score later. Right? I think he's a great college basketball player. He's more of a scorer than a shooter, if you know the difference. What I mean.
Yeah.
He's not that pure. I mean, he can make some great shots, and when he sets up and gets himself squared, does all the fundamental things on his three-pointer, it's almost automatic. But he can score with his contorting his body and doing all kinds of things. I guarantee you this: there's nobody in this country that wouldn't put him on their team and put him in their starting lineup.
Yeah. Hey. So we talked about the reasons that you looked at the stat line, you think, oh, yeah, you win that game. Manny having a big game, Andy having a big game, Wade having a big game. But the part of the reason you didn't is you didn't get much from the middle in Pharrell Payne, and you didn't get anything from Zurich Phelps either. Zurich Phelps went 3 of 19, 0 from 8 from 3, while Pharrell Payne had 3 points.
I think he was 1 for 9 from 3.
Sorry, 1 for 9.
Yeah. And look, we've seen Zurich score 20s. You know, the average, he's just that. But it seems, there's this weird balance of when do you start telling a guy, or when does the guy know that, it's not my night, I got to defer. Because I don't think you want to keep somebody from being aggressive, especially a guy that's, averages about 15 points for you, 14 points for you. But there are other times when you're just thinking, that's not the best choice for the moment. And I don't want to just hammer too much on it, but I remember there's one instance in a real key part that early in the shot clock, he's gonna drive inside, and he just I don't know if he tried to shoot and the ball came out of his hands, or if he just lost control. But it was a failed possession that you really needed to have something positive happen. But he wasn't the only guy that missed some shots and missed some opportunities. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, this team takes you on an emotional roller coaster almost every time they play, right?
Yeah.
Because, you can have games like you have against Auburn, where everything clicks. You can have games like Ole Miss, where you have to come roaring back. You can have games like Vanderbilt or Mississippi State, where you don't look good, right? And you still feel like you could have won those games, even though, the Mississippi State score got out of hand towards the end. And then you have games like yesterday, where, the margins are so thin. A&M, you could say they should have lost because they had, 9-point deficit, 6-point deficits that came. And you can also say they should have won with 1:20 left. They've got a chance to go up 7.
Yeah, when you say that there's a 9-point deficit, you had to fight back. Yeah, they fought back from deficits all year long. 9 points to me, especially early in the, early in the second half, they were down 9. You're like, I'm definitely not giving up at that point.
I think there was 10 minutes left.
Won. I'm talking about when it was late in the game and you had the lead and the ball, or you were at the free throw line with a chance to take the lead, in the final seconds and didn't do it. There's just so many opportunities that were there, and they were or get a big stop when it mattered most, and they just didn't do it. And typically they do. Or frequently they do. But, it was so frustrating because they had more than one chance to nail that game down and beat Texas and probably eliminate Texas from the postseason. And, it got away from them.
Yeah, it did. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. Luke is going to join us from the other wing of the mansion that you're in. And he's got some scenarios where A&M could still be a 3 seed, potentially fall to a 4 seed. We need some help, it looks like, this weekend. So we'll talk to him on the other side of that. Looking forward to chatting up with Luke Evangelist. Right now, we're talking Bird Dog. They are basically an Airbnb for a hunting experience. If you're into hunting, you've thought about hunting, you might go hunting, you want to learn about hunting, all the different options out there, you should reach out to Bird Dog. If you have land and want to get money on your land because you want hunters on your land, they can be the ones that help you out. You don't even need to want hunters on your land. You just want to make some extra money on your land from the tax benefits that are out there. They can help optimize those tax benefits. Some of their clients are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre of land. They can be your personal consultants and maximize the income that you have on your land. Remember Bird Dog for all your full-service hunting needs. And, of course, remember them to help you make money for your ranch. They believe that the hunting and the outdoors is something that everyone should experience and are excited to get the next generation of hunters out there. The website, birddogit.com. Birddogit.com. Check it. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño in studio, Olin Buchanan in Nashville at a mansion, and so is Luke Evangelist at the different wing, Wayne Manor there. Good morning, Luke. How are you, man?
You know, I'm doing well, David. How are you?
Good. I'm glad your camera's underwater. Hey, couple things. I know that you can get wrapped up in the emotion of a game the day after, a couple days after, when you lose to your rival. In the big picture, and I have several pictures. There isn't one big picture. OB is correct in saying that this team's going to be judged on what they do in March. But in the back of my mind, I'm still going to be thinking about yesterday. Now, if they make it to the Elite Eight, I won't think about it as much. But in my mind, at least today, and look, I'm human, I can change. As of today, outside of an Elite Eight run, I'm going to be thinking about that game a little bit more than I should.
And that's what you want in college sports. That's why rivalries matter so much, that all people remember is the kick six or 4th and 31, or it took A&M basketball winning 6 games in a row for people to forget about what happened in Austin. And quite frankly, it's going to take a similar run for people to forget what happened in Nashville, because that's what you want in a rivalry game. You want it to mean more. You want it to sting more when you lose and feel extra great when you win. And unfortunately, A&M wins the 3-game series with a plus 14-point differential, but they lost 2 of 3 games to a Texas team that they essentially let in the NCAA tournament. If they're going to make the tournament, I'm not speaking in complete fact here. There's still a chance they get left out. But the brutal fact of the matter is, if A&M wins in Austin or A&M wins in Nashville, they are keeping their rival out of the NCAA tournament. And A&M fans are probably sleeping a little bit better today.
They all would sleep better if they don't go on an 8-bar pub crawl after midnight, Luke.
What? Tell me more. I need more information.
When in Nashville or when in Rome, you do as the Nashvillians do. And so you have to experience all the Nashville places. And that's what some of us did last night. And OB was right there by my side.
For one of them.
OB, how long did you last?
Whoa, pause.
Look, you guys, come on, be honest now. If the Aggies go to the, let's say, Sweet 16 or Elite 8, you're really still going to be grousing about losing to Texas.
Yeah.
What's more important to you? What's more important to A&M fans?
OB, it's
Texas?
more important to go to the Elite 8 or the Sweet 16. Absolutely. But it should have happened anyway. I guess that's my point. And I'm surrounded with Longhorns. That my dear friend Rahil's a Longhorn. My wife went to Texas. She hasn't brought it up once. Good. I don't know, timelines. To me, it's both things can be okay. Like, it's okay for this to fester and celebrate a great season if they get to the Sweet 16. And I'm not even 24 hours removed from the game. I'm more, this is my first chance to vent about it because I didn't think about it. I mean, I thought about it last night, but I didn't bring it up around my wife and my kids. I just kind of did honeydew stuff.
Well, I mean, ultimately, their season shouldn't be defined by what happened against Texas. And if this team goes on the run that we all think they're capable of, it won't be defined by what happened against Texas. I don't want to say the SEC tournament is meaningless because it's not, but we can all agree that there's more meaningful things for A&M to play for. And the last time that they lost to Texas, obviously we all remember they blew a massive lead that they should have kept. And that game, I think, lit a fire under A&M. They made the adjustments that they needed, and they rattled off 6 straight wins. And if they do that again, 6 straight wins will have them cutting down the nets in San Antonio. So you hope that this is not the beginning of the end and more of a sign of A&M just got their teeth kicked in. Who they lost to and how they lost to should light an extra fire under them with this week of rest, and they should come out swinging against an opponent that they should beat, whether they're a 3 seed or a 4 seed. They should win their next game, but you can't take anything for granted because this is March and this team has to come out and make adjustments. They got to get back to their winning formula. We can talk about free throws. We can talk about first half rebounding. We can talk about not feeding Pharrell Payne, and maybe that was a symptom of the whistle that Texas was getting and A&M was getting. But the fact of the matter is, this team has a winning formula, and they were thrown off of it for most of that game against Texas. And when they play to that standard and that formula, they are capable of beating the number one team in the country in Auburn, and they're capable of making it to the second weekend in March Madness, but they can't play outside themselves. And unfortunately, that's what you saw for 40 minutes against Texas, the last 20 in Austin and the first 20 in Nashville, and then bits and pieces here and there for the rest of the game.
Well, I don't think they got their teeth kicked in. I think they might have stepped on the head of the rake and the handle hit you in the mouth.
That is such a good example.
But again, I think A&M really just has to shore up a couple of things of its own doing to be a team that, dare I say, is capable of making the Final Four. But they got to. There's sometimes they got to get out of their own way. And you know what's one of the first things they have to do, though, is, and I think that was the difference yesterday, is they have to play defense the way they expect to play defense. And I know sometimes, like, you're playing a guy like yesterday that can make shots. If you give him just a little bit of room, Trey Johnson can make a 30-foot three. So don't give him that room.
Hey, I got to read this text because I think it's great, and he's got an awesome point, okay? But I'm going to respond to the text, okay? Cuervo Ag, David, Ohio State lost to Michigan but won the recent football national championship.
Right.
Ask any Ohio State fan. It's an ugly blot on a great season. Same for A&M. If we make a great run in the NCAAs, we'll see how ugly of a blot it is for us in the next few weeks.
Great, tremendous point.
100% agree.
What I'm trying to say, he said it better.
But here's where I respond. We're talking about a national championship for Ohio State. Had they lost to Notre Dame, the conversation would still be about the way the season ended. I don't think they would be celebrating. And by the way, and I didn't say a national championship for A&M. I'm saying as of right now, 12 hours after losing, how many ever hours has been, 16 hours after losing to Texas. What I'm saying is, outside of an Elite Eight, I'm going to be thinking about that loss, the what if we could have had both. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not saying you have to like it. What I'm saying is that you go on a run and I'm not even saying win national championship, do something you've not done before, or at least Sweet 16.
That's what I'm saying.
And then you're saying, I'm talking about when I remember that season, I'm remembering, hey, remember that year they went to the Elite Eight for the first, they finally got there, and remember what they did in that game to get there. And I'm not thinking about, oh gosh, yeah, but remember how they lost to Texas in the meaningless, and I'll say it, Luke, it's a meaningless SEC tournament for A&M. Maybe, as Mr. Cobb said yesterday, maybe if they had won the SEC tournament, maybe and everything else perfectly fell in line, they could have been a 1 or a real high 2 seed, but it was a meaningless SEC tournament. That said, yeah, I get it. It's Texas. And so it's different when you're talking about that opponent. But Aggies always understand that there are, as much as you hate Texas, there are bigger priorities than beating the Longhorns.
OB, and I'm going to let Luke have the last word here in this segment, then we'll go to the next one. But I agree. There are bigger things out there. But I am an irrational fan 16 hours after a loss to your rival that includes a loss where you had a 22-point lead, that includes the Texas football win that I hated here at Kyle Field, 17-7. That includes Schloss leaving. So I'm just saying, like, it being my favorite line, the prisoner of the moment, it sucks right now. Yeah, I'll think better when we get, if A&M is able to get to the Elite Eight or even the Sweet 16. But right now, like, I'm going to be thinking about that. Luke, final words.
Yeah, I mean, keep saying it's who you lost to and how you lost that makes it sting more. But at the end of the day, it's a quad 1 loss at the end of the season. I would be surprised if it did change A&M seeding. That you would need a team like Wisconsin or Maryland to go win the Big Ten tournament to maybe knock A&M down to a 4 seed. I think Texas is getting a lot of credit for the win because the bubble is so weak this year. But in terms of A&M falling a seed line, for losing in double overtime to a quad one opponent. We will have to see what Bracket Matrix has to say once it's all updated. But the fact that 89% of bracketologists had A&M as a 3 before the game, I don't see over 40% of them changing their mind and making it really a split decision. But we'll continue to monitor that. But at the end of the day, it was a great game at the SEC tournament, and A&M has bigger things to play for, quite simply.
All right, we're going to hit a break here. We'll come back. I'm going to be in a better mood in the next segment. I'm just going to be happy. Let's talk about keeping water local. I know you all care about your community. I know that if you listen to this show, you've got ties to Texas A&M, either as a fan or you went to school here, wherever you may be. And I know you think about your children's future. But we rarely think about the water that is in our area. Water is truly the lifeblood of everything we love about being at our home, our neighborhoods, our schools, our parks, and the very quality of life that we enjoy. We're facing droughts and rising temperatures, and something is happening out of state that is concerning. Interests in neighborhood communities are working to take most of the precious resources away from this area. That's why I'm asking you to consider supporting Keep Water Local, coalition of your neighbors, local business leaders, and community voices united with one purpose: protecting our water and our future. As a parent raising kids here, I realize that water isn't just about what comes in our taps. It's about preserving that Aggie spirit, sustaining our farms, and having it operated for generations, ensuring businesses can thrive for generations after generations. And you can do one thing to be a part of it. You can go to keepwaterlocal.org, click Get Involved today. Together we can ensure our water stays where it belongs, right here in the community, supporting our way of life for generations to come. Keepwaterlocal.org. Let's talk a little Snaps clothing. David Nuño here, and I love wearing Snaps clothing everywhere. I've got the flannel on right now. You've seen me in the Tailgater collection with the A&M gear. It is fantastic. If you see me around town with my sons, Christian and Cruz, they've got a bunch of Snaps gear. When they have big games for Consol, they wear nice clothes, so they wear their Snap stuff. And I'm telling you, with baseball season here, let's all kind of go looking stylish and fit to the games there at Olson wearing the Snaps clothing. As a reminder, they are the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snaps maker out there. Their Tailgater collection is built for game day with breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics to keep you comfortable while you rep your Aggies in style. Now, whether you're watching the game from home or maybe you're in attendance, you're tailgating, whatever it may be, you got to make sure you head to snapsclothing.com to see everything they have to offer. It is fashionable, it is awesome, and you're going to love it. Luke dropped off? I was going to keep talking to Luke. What happened to Luke? Oh, well. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. As a reminder, the final segment of the program is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. Let's bank on it. Presented by Vera Bank, authentic relationship-based banking built for real life. Go see Joel Jackson and the team. Learn more. VeraBank.com. Obi-Wan, what are you banking on?
I'm banking on that A&M baseball team winning this SEC series against Alabama.
Okay.
I'm banking on a real strong first Friday night start from, I'm having one.
Ryan Brauninger.
Ryan Brauninger, goodness gracious. I kept wanting to say Lampkin. I said, no, he's the second.
He's Saturday.
I'm really confident for that Sunday game. If you look at Alabama, they seem in their 3-game series, they seem to really struggle in the third game. And I like the pitching that they're getting from Patton. The Aggies are getting from Patton on Sunday.
All right. Well, then I'm going to bank on Jace breaking the record by Saturday. Okay? Maybe a homer today, mower tomorrow. Or sorry, wait, today's Friday. Yeah, today, tomorrow, right? So I'm going to go with Jace. And look, I don't know. I was going to ask Luke what the scenarios are for A&M to get to stay a 3 seed from the conventional thinking out there. But I'm just going to bank on it. They're going to stay a 3 seed. It's going to be tight, but they're going to get a 3 seed, and we're going to be going to Wichita. I don't want to go to Wichita. Sorry, Tyler Pounds, if you're listening. I want to go to Denver.
Milwaukee.
Oh. How far is Milwaukee from Chicago? Can we just stay in Chicago?
90 minutes.
I mean, that's an idea.
Milwaukee.
I've never been, so I'd be okay with that.
I've never been to Milwaukee either. I've never been to Wisconsin.
Let's I'm bank on I want it to be Denver. It's gonna be Wichita, and A&M is gonna be a 3 seed.
All right.
Hey, Obi, so am I, you play my therapist for a minute. I do agree with you that this team will be judged on what they do in March. But the recency to what happened yesterday with the history, do you kind of understand where I'm coming from? Like, yeah, that's what we're going to judge them on, but I'm still going to be thinking about this a little bit.
Look, I get it. Aggies hate Texas. Longhorns hate Aggies, right? I get it. It's an arch rivalry. But, and maybe it's because I didn't go to A&M, but you don't have to like losing to them. And I understand it's stinging and it's going to linger this week. But I'm just saying the cure for that is to go out and win your games in the NCAA tournament. And if you win the games in the NCAA tournament, I don't think anybody cares about what you did in that game against your rival. And I go back to what the texter sent in the last segment about Ohio State and Michigan.
Here's one from PG Ag and King Oaks. Failure to hit free throws. Sorry, it disappeared on me. Cost this team games and will likely cost us in the NCAAs. Look, this is who they are. They're not a great free throw shooting team. There are games that they hit them, and there are plenty of games that they don't.
I'm just saying, in a tight game, in the last minutes of a tight game, I want the ball in Wade Taylor's hands, because if you get him to the foul line, he's going to make them. And I don't think there's anybody else, with the possible exception of Anderson Garcia, that when they go to the line, you just know they're going to make them.
How brilliant was Anderson Garcia? That one pass behind the back to Hayden Hefner that he wasn't expecting, and he wasn't able to hit it. But I mean,
he's the second best player on the team,
and he's going to go down.
Excellent.
He may go down as like one of my favorite all-time Aggie basketball players ever. And then there's a list that includes Logan Lee, Chris Walker, AC Law, and Anderson Garcia.
Yeah, one of these things are not like the other. Sorry, Logan.
I do think we might see Anderson playing pro ball somewhere.
He does. I've said this before. He reminds me in a different way of Alex Caruso, in that Caruso, what he was so good at was doing the little things that make you win games. And he'd make the big plays too, but it was the little things that he was so consistently good at accomplishing that made a difference. And Anderson does that as well.
Thank you, OB. Safe travel. See you Sunday.
All
right, when we come back on TexAgs Live, John Pugliese. I don't know why I did that. We'll have that next. Carson Stein with the Jams. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 2 of the program. We'll keep talking basketball. We've got John Pugliese coming up right here on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. After that, Billy Liucci will join us before he gets back to town, and we'll do the baseball bunch during the 10 o'clock hour. We go to the Buppy's Catering Hotline. There he is, John Pugliese, Basketball Insider. What's up, buddy?
My God, what's happening today?
Look, man, I get emotionally involved in these games, as we should, right? We're fans, analysts, all that. You know, put it all up in a ball. Yesterday's loss really, really irks me. Not mad at anybody in particular. It's just the situation, right? Like, I want to go into the tournament with more momentum than they have, right? And losing to your rival sucks. So it's a very deflating feeling. I know there are bigger fish to fry, but just, you know, how do you kind of break down what you saw last night and what it could mean next week?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in a fortunate place where I get to watch basketball and I just get to really enjoy the game, right? And obviously I have a connection with A&M, and I feel good about that connection. And I get excited to watch their games. And I wasn't real excited last night either. You know, I think what we're used to with A&M basketball is we're used to a team that plays its best basketball in March, right? For the past 5 years of Buzz's tenure, they played better in March and at the end of the year than they have previously. It's hard when at the end of the year you're not winning all your games. You're not going into March with a lot of momentum. And I think that's the one thing that worries me is how do they respond to this? And with a lack of momentum, having lost the 4 straight games, you come back, you win 2, and now you lose to Texas, which you can say, like, yeah, you know, it's an SEC tournament game. I've heard everybody say, and I think I've said, like, oh, it doesn't really matter, you know. The committee's looking at blind resumes, and yeah, but this feels a little bit different when you've lost to Texas twice this year and you haven't looked great in those games, and you know, it just doesn't feel great. And so I'm a little bit concerned with the lack of momentum from this team. There were some strong spots yesterday, but it's almost like they don't know that the Aggies don't know who's going to step up when. Like, I think they can rely on Wade, but he hasn't shot it great. Okay, who's going to get the big shot or who's going to get the big bucket? I mean, Wade goes 17 and 18 from the line, which is great, and contributes to all his other, you know, all the points. But, like, man, him and Phelps together were not so hot out on the floor. So I worry about the momentum. I really worry about the role definition at this point of the year. I've made it known about, you know, the lack of stability in terms of who's playing when and what their roles are, especially over the course of probably the last 7 games. And that's what concerns me a little bit. I don't love the starting lineup situation that they're currently going with, and I can't wrap my head around it.
John, so help me understand what went wrong last night, because if you are just a box score watcher, and we're not that here, right? But if you are, you look at, wow, Wade was fantastic, at least numbers-wise. Anderson Garcia hits 4 threes. When he gets double-doubles, A&M rarely loses. Even Manny had a performance. Then you look at the others, right? Zurich had a rough game. Pharrell Payne didn't get much action at all. So you just, what went wrong for A&M?
Well, I think it starts with kind of like the tone setting. You know, Solomon Washington not starting, I think, puts the Aggies in a bad situation. Solomon Washington is your core leader, your energy, your glue, your defender, the point of your press. And he sets a tone. And when he's not in the game to start, I don't love it. I think it sets a bad precedent for how they're going to start that game. When your toughness isn't in, now they have other guys who are tough. Don't get me wrong. I love Anderson Garcia. But when you don't have that dude in there, that energy guy, that dude who will get in somebody's face, that dude who's going to yell and scream, the guy who's going to go after the offensive rebounds with tenacity, I don't love the way they've been starting games. And I think that's point one. You know, this lineup of Obaseki and Hefner and Taylor and Coleman and Garcia, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Manny didn't play for 4 straight games, and all of a sudden you're starting him and you're counting on him to do all these things. Hefner's playing limited minutes, and then you're starting him and you're expecting him to do all these things. And I think that, to me, is an issue. I love Phelps off the bench, but on this team, Phelps has to be a go-to guy. Phelps should be on the floor at all times, whenever you can. So I think that's an issue, and I think that was an issue last night. I see a team who is struggling to get guys the ball and initiate offense and take over the paint, which is something you have to control in the SEC. When you don't start your best post player, right? Because that's what Pharrell Payne is. He is your best post player, and he only takes 2 field goals, right? Like, I know he went 3 for 8 from the line, but he only takes 2 field goals. that's not a great precedent to set when you're playing against, one, your rival, and two, in a conference tournament game that you're trying to win. It didn't feel like the energy and the assertiveness was there. It didn't feel like the game plan was to dominate the low block or to dominate the paint, which you have to do against Texas. And so that makes it even more difficult for guys like Wade and Phelps to find room to work. I mean, 3 for 19 from Phelps, 5 for 18 for Taylor. These guys don't miss a whole lot of open shots. And they weren't missing a whole lot of open shots. They were missing shots with people draped all over them because there's not a whole lot of room to work. Texas shrunk the gaps on them, and they made it really difficult. And then on the defensive end, you did very little to control the pace and the energy of the game the way that I've expected A&M to do with their press and the way they play defensively. At this point, everyone's played you a couple times. They know how to attack your defense. It might confuse them early on in the season, but they know how to attack your defense. There weren't a whole lot of changes to that. And that's a difficult thing when you just rely on that one way of playing. So I saw a team that was kind of searching and clawing, and yet they still were up, 6 with a couple minutes left, And so it's not a great end to this, and I consider this part of the regular season. I don't consider this part of the postseason because it's still blind resume stuff. No one's saying, oh, they won 5 games. The committee's not saying, oh, they won 5 games. We've seen how that plays out for A&M in the past. These are just more games. So I worry a little bit about where they're at. I don't love it, the end to the regular season, and yet they still should be a 3 or 4 seed, and they will be. I'm not confident in either one at this point, losing to Texas, especially if Kentucky keeps winning and a couple of these other teams keep winning who are fighting for a 3 as well, because that just boosts their quad 1 and quad 2 wins, whoever they're playing right now. So,
John, this is going to be probably irrational, but you look at some of the losses down the stretch. Yes, you had an amazing win against Auburn. You beat an LSU team you should beat. The loss to Mississippi State was, not a bad loss if you look at metrics, but the final score made it feel like a bad loss. The Vanderbilt loss felt like a bad loss. And now the Texas loss, by the way, twice, but at the end of the season, feels like a bad loss. So, is the Auburn game an outlier, or what's more of who they are right now? These losses down the last stretch of the season, or what we saw between Auburn and LSU?
Yeah, I'd be making a sweeping generalization, but I think you are who you are at the end of the season. I think that Auburn game, Auburn's playing without some of their star power. They not only lose to A&M, but then they lose to a really good Alabama team, right? Which we know. But I don't know. Auburn was at not full strength, and they had played some close games leading up to that. You've got a 12-point game against Auburn, which was probably closer. They did blow out Ole Miss. They had a close-ish game with Arkansas. They had a real pummel of a game versus Alabama. And then, they were before that A&M game, they took care of business against Kentucky, but they weren't at full strength. And quite frankly, I think the A&M matchup was better for A&M against Auburn than it was for Auburn against A&M. I just think we matched up better with them. We were able to control some things better just based on who we are as a team and our principles. But losing that 4 brings out all the things that you weren't thinking about when you were winning some of these close games. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the difference, is we were winning those close games. We had close wins over Missouri, right? We were battling it out with some of these teams when we were on a run. We had a close win against Oklahoma. We had a last-second shot against Ole Miss, right? These were close games that we were winning. And so when you're then losing those games and they're close-ish, or you can't get them close and you're just, losing by 8 against Tennessee, losing by 16 against Mississippi State, right? You lose by 2 against Vanderbilt. If we beat Vanderbilt and we stop that losing streak and then we, beat Auburn, and we're talking about something a little bit different, but we didn't. And so I think we are who we are right now. I think we are a team that struggles to score the basketball. I think we're a team that can really offensive rebound. So a missed shot is sometimes our best shot. I think we're a team who has a bit of an identity crisis. I don't know that our players know who we really are right now. You got Phelps and Wade taking 39 of our 72 shots. Yeah, they're our best guards, but they're taking tough contested shots when then you have Payne, who's been your best low post player, who, only has 2 field goal attempts, right? And 2 for 8 from the line. So I think we're a little bit more like the team who's lost some games, and we're in the SEC, y'all. Right. There's a reason that they're talking about 12 teams. I mean, Texas makes a run, 13 potential teams. I don't know. We'll see what with Georgia, but that's a lot of teams from one league, and that's a battle. This idea of putting these teams all in this conference, which could be really good for football and has all these different reasons, it is brutal for basketball. And you can be Oklahoma, or you could be Georgia, and you could be Texas, right? You could be 6-12 in the best league in the country, and you can sneak your way in because you are battling every night, and a loss in league is not as bad as a loss out of league. And I think that's one thing to keep in perspective is who we're playing. You hope, and I really hope this is the case for SEC basketball. I hope it's the case for A&M, obviously more than just SEC basketball, but I hope this is the case for SEC basketball, that they absolutely dominate this tournament. Because if they don't, the conversation shifts from this is the best league in the country to they just beat up on each other all year and have nothing left. Who wants to play in that without NCAA tournament success? So where are we? I think we're a team that's more the 4-game losing streak than it is the win against Auburn. But that doesn't mean that that's necessarily a bad thing because you are battling every night. These are hard games to win. And unfortunately, they've lost some close ones now. And they really are searching a little bit for an identity, which is what you do when you lose, 4 out of 7.
Well,
or 5 out of 7.
John, let's talk about if they're a 3 or 4 seed, the level of team they'll face in the first round and in the second round, if they're so blessed to go, will not be of the caliber of the teams that we're talking about. But some of the issues that pop up, I think you have more of a margin of error, right? But if games are close, you got to hit your free throws. If games are close, you got to put the ball in your best ball handler's hands, right? So just kind of talk about the way this team plays and their level of success at the next tournament based on who they have faced.
Yeah, I mean, the wild part about this, I don't know if it was Buzz who said it. One of the SEC coaches in the, I think it was Bruce Pearl. One of the SEC coaches in the media room said something to the effect of, "We're going to have SEC teams playing in round 2 and round 3. They're going to be playing against each other because of these seeds and because of Power 5 conference programs who are in the Big Ten, who are in some of these different leagues. You're going to be playing against some really good teams." The thing that you have to rely on is you need to rely on your identity in the SEC in the NCAA tournament, and you need to get hot at the right time. That's a key to winning games here. You got to get hot at the right time, and depending on who they play, right? You're playing against generally the 12, 13, 14 seeds are those teams who got hot at the right time in their conference tournament and won, 3 games in 4 days or 4 games in 5 days in some cases, right? This is a really big opportunity for those schools as well. And they usually have somebody that you got to turn the water off on. You've got to make it hard for them to score the basketball. You've got to game plan around an individual generally who really got hot towards the end of the season. And you've got to dominate the defensive side of the ball. And then you have to get lucky a little bit. The NCAA tournament is based around luck. That's why there's so many close games and so many upsets, because that one team gets a little bit luckier than the others. right? They got the ball at the end of the game. Someone hits a big shot, game over, right? They played it close enough, right? And so I think they'll be in an interesting situation here. We'll see who they get in round one. I mean, they could very easily get a team like Maryland from the Big Ten or whoever, right? Like they could very easily get a team who's a 12 seed from a Power 5 conference. That's a real thing. This is not your old NCAA tournament where you're just playing, South Dakota State in the first round. I mean, you could, right? You could play a team like Omaha from the Summit, who, by the way, absolutely railroaded the Summit this year for the first time ever. Like, you could play one of those teams, and that would be a hard game in today's climate. And you could also be put in a position where you're playing another Power 5 school. There's going to be some big matchups early in this tournament, and we're all going to be looking at this like, wow.
John, why do you think it's rare to get, and I mean, it's been a handful of times, but it's not often for Wade and for Zurich to have big-ish games on the same night? Like yesterday, Manny was fantastic. Season high points. He looked like the Manny from March that we've seen before, and Wade. So that was great to see. But I feel like both Zurich and Wade don't often have like those kind of games where like, look at these two.
I mean, the hard thing with those two, and even with Manny, right? We talked about this 2 weeks ago, is they're all ball dominant guards. Like they need the ball in their hands to make plays. Like just look at their assist rate, their assists. Zurich had 1. Wade had 2. These are not dudes. These are ball dominant scoring guards. So they don't make a lot of plays for each other. In the next game, watch the stagnation of the offense in the early shot clock. They run the same kind of patterns over and over again that are guarded the same way over and over again by the defense. And what it comes down to is a one-on-one play, beat your defender, bucket. Like there's not a whole lot of creativity to what they do. They're not running Phelps off multiple screens. They're not running Wade off multiple screens. They're not using him as a screener as much as they have in years prior that got him open, right? If your best scorer is also your best screener, you have a better opportunity to get that person open, and they're not doing a lot of that right now. And so it becomes a ball-dominant, make-a-play offense, which is why you get 38 shots from 2 individuals and you go 8 for 38. And without a whole bunch of assists, then you're relying on one-on-one play. Let's beat my defender. I'm going to beat my defender off the bounce. I'm going to make a play, and it's a contested play because there's not a whole lot of room to work when you don't have to worry about them driving and kicking for an open shot. How many times has Wade gotten an open look off of an extra pass? It's not often. Mm-hmm. If he does, he knocks it down, y'all. Like so, there's just not a whole lot of intention to what they're doing, which makes it very difficult for those two to score the points that they need to score for us to win, most games. And yet at times when we push the tempo, David, we do some good things. We just haven't pushed the tempo much in the last 7 games.
John, final thought. Looking at last night's or yesterday afternoon's game in a vacuum, yeah, it sucks, but move on. But I think it's going back to your original point. It's the way the team has played for the most part, at the end of the season, that has us all concerned about what the next couple of weeks could look like.
Yeah, it is. And, now it's time to put up, right? You beat some really good teams this year. You have an insane amount of quad 1 wins. You play in the best conference in the country. Okay, well, all right, so we lost our first game. Let's rest, reset, and get after it. I mean, that's the key to right now. Turn the new page, right? Turn over a new leaf. We just got shelled in the second inning, and we got to bring in our relievers to try and get us back in the game, and the bat's got to come alive. Right? That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Every game matters now, and this team has some stuff to them. Like I don't give them all that much credit when I'm on the phone with you, David. This team has some stuff to them. We just could see a team that strings it together here because they've done it before. Hey, win the close game. It doesn't matter. Just win.
John, appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk next week from somewhere. We'll see where we're at.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, man. John Pugliese on the Buffy's Catering Hotline. All right, we'll come back with a short segment before Billy joins us. If you want to text the show or call the show now would be a great time. 979-693-1150. That is our phone number. We're talking Milliken Reserve, a farm-to-table community in College Station. They have homes, they have trails, they got wide open spaces, and they have a mission to build a healthy community around nature. And they have done that by just making sure that they have connected with nature. They want you to connect with nature. They want your family to connect with nature. It's such a cool place to go, an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that's got hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking, equestrian trails, evening yoga, summer camps, music festivals, farmer markets, farm tours. It is an awesome place to go hang out, be with your family. Awesome neighborhood, too. The creek, the hollow, the meadows, all at Milliken Reserve. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We may be getting Billy earlier than I thought, but if not, we'll hit a quick break. Chase in Houston, Texas, in focusing squarely on the rivalry. This has been almost the worst-case scenario for year one sharing a conference with Texas, again, with the results against them this year. Do we need to go through them? So you got the loss in football. If I remember correctly, you split with them in volleyball. Nick, does that sound right? I believe you split with them in volleyball.
That's correct.
Okay. What am I missing? You beat them in tennis, right? That was just a couple weeks ago. Women's tennis, I should say. I forget what the men did against them. Basketball, you've lost 2 of 3. We know what happened in the offseason, baseball-wise. You eliminated them. Schloss goes there, and the start of their season. So, yeah, Chase, you're not wrong. It has been difficult. I'll read another one. Peruna in College Station after last night. Today is a tough one. My Ponies lost a heartbreaker to Clemson, and the Aggies missed a chance to finish Texas. Time to regroup. Thank God for another game next week. Lane in Centerville. Anderson Garcia reminds me of Marlon Pompey. All right, so Nick, should I hit a break here since Billy's just joining, or take him here? Okay, look, we're going to take Billy here in a moment. While we're doing that, 512 text in. Tough loss and wish we got to take on the real UT for a revenge opportunity instead of one and done. Agreeing, letting the horns off the hook twice stings. Offense has to be a little bit more efficient. We can make a good run here. James. Thank you, James, for the text. We go to the Buppy's Catering hotline. And Billy Liucci joining us here. Billy, good morning, buddy.
David, what's up, buddy?
I guess, I know you had a post last night. Let's just kind of get into it. By the way, we're like 2 minutes away from a break. I don't know if do we want to just go long here or do one thing and then hit a break? I'll let you decide on the fly.
Me?
Yeah, I'll let you decide.
I mean, go ahead. We'll do your break when you need to do your break, David.
Okay. Thanks.
This is your show.
No, it's our show. I believe I've been entrusted.
Nuño.
All right, so just
say Mas Fajitas in the background behind your head. What was that?
Oh, I guess it is. Yeah, how about that? Anyway, so yesterday, after some sleep, you had some time to think about it. Just kind of how do you wrap it all up, what you saw yesterday?
Just not disappointed in the guys other than that first half performance. That was very disappointing. But just disappointed in the result, for obvious reasons. There are a lot of reasons. I mean, look, the first thing, and we'll talk about it maybe after the break, is like, I guess we could do that in the shorter version, is losing to Texas, like 2 out of 3 to the Longhorns. This is not, I know for basketball, it is in a bubble. Okay. For basketball, they lost 2 games against a rival that they should have won. Nobody's happy about that. They've got to be disappointed, disgusted, pissed off. Who knows? Maybe that'll propel them into this tournament with a chip on their shoulder. And if I was Buzz, I would have said, hey, the next time you play like that, like for a half, the next time this locker room feels like this is when it's over. Like, just so you know. Like this game should be as if they didn't need motivation, for March Madness. This should be the ultimate motivation, the way this trip to Nashville was so shortened. But outside of that, it's a bubble. Like they lost to their rival. They're pissed off. They're disappointed. The reality, though, is for A&M fans, the anger and how pissed off everybody is goes way beyond basketball. It goes back to Texas ripping Slosh away the day after the national championship game. It goes back to 17-7 at Kyle Field. It goes, there's a lot that's going into that. It goes back to blowing that lead in Austin, on the hardwood couple months ago. And then last night, it's compounding. And so I understand, I think everyone understands it. It's not just about last night's game. But for this basketball team, it is about last night's game. And again, man, you can't play like they did for a half and win anything more than a game in that tournament. You can't shoot free throw that free throw number is so skewed thanks to the greatness of Wade Taylor from the line yesterday, but you can't do that. You can't look at by game's end, you can't look up and say Wade, Manny, and Andy were really good, and then me say, well, who else was? And you have to kind of stop naming names outside of the effort and the fight. Like, that's the one thing I felt good about Nuño is they played another March Madness level game, but that's also what I'm pissed off about is like, hey, win that game when you're ahead by 5 and with the ball, with possession in the in the first overtime. Win that game when you had a chance to end it in regulation and have clawed your way back not once but twice in the second half. And not only do you feel great about that, not only do you knock off Texas 2 out of 3, not only do you keep those SOBs out of the NCAA tournament, which should matter when you're playing a rival with a chance to keep them out of the tournament. Don't give me this. It's about us. It's not about them, because it is. It's about both, because it's just factually is about both. You always want to put your foot on your rival's throat, or at least you should. And then in the final piece of that is you would have gotten to play Tennessee today in front of nothing but Tennessee fans in a really intense environment. And even if you'd have lost that one, just to have played back-to-back games against a rival, beat them, play in a quote-unquote neutral site in hostile enemy territory against another 1 or a 2 seed, I just think it gets you exactly where you need to be as you enter that tournament. That's what I think, and that's what I think they left on the table. We can name all the reasons why, particularly in that first overtime where they absolutely should have won that game. And there's the missed free throws. There's the most unfortunate of timeouts when Wade hits that 3. There was the inbounds alley-oop. They had a moment where I think they thought they were slamma jamma. But you can go through all that. Henry missed a big free throw, and Henry played his ass off towards the end of that game, both overtimes late in the second half. But all of that is just go back to say you missed a bunch of free throws and you played really poorly in the first half. They didn't play A&M basketball in the first half. And then it's the thing. If you have another half like that, you're going home. So it's going to be interesting. I want to talk on the other side about what this team still can do. And look, we're all tired of losing those games, right? I mean, we see it on the boards. I see it on social media. I sat there and watched it. We're all tired of that part of it. But there's a bigger picture at play with this team that doesn't involve anything burnt orange. But they still got to do it. And we'll want to talk about how much did they affect their chances of being able to do that by losing yesterday.
All right, we'll hit that on the other side. Right now, did you or someone you know graduate from A&M in the last 12 years? And are you leading as an example in business or in service? If that's the case, the Association of Former Students would like to invite you to nominate yourself or someone that you know for the 12 Under 12 award. Each year, the association recognizes a dozen Aggies who have graduated within the last 12 years for their business accomplishments, civic or military service, philanthropic efforts, and outstanding representation of A&M's core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service. Previous year honorees have included leaders in business and higher education, architects, petroleum engineers, nonprofit executives, physicians, veterans, and members of the U.S. Armed Forces. 2025 nominations close on Saturday, March the 15th, so be sure to submit a nomination soon. To learn more about the recognition and submit a nomination, please visit tx.ag/12under12 nominations. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. We go back to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. That's where Billy Liucci is in Nashville. Billy, we left it at the last segment that, yesterday's game sucked. There's no doubt about it, who was against and how it played out. But this team is still playing for something bigger than beating the Horns. Thought that was a good tease. Good lead-in. I really did. Really thought that was a good one.
David, you were muted.
No? Was I?
Yeah, it's muted. I'm sorry.
Anyway, did you hear my awesome lead-in?
No, I didn't. I heard the music, muted it.
Okay. Well, basically, I was talking about how this team has bigger things to play for than just beating Texas yesterday.
Well, they didn't have anything bigger to play for than beating Texas yesterday. So I definitely don't want it to sound like that, because that's not even close to true. I think the players should. I think when you see burnt orange across from you, just like Michigan, Ohio State, just like Alabama, Auburn, you want it to be that kind of rivalry. Your blood should boil when you see that color. I mean, period. I sat right there and watched the whole thing, watched the competitiveness of both teams. And I was sitting with, in our group, it was several Aggies and then neutral observer who went to Florida, big basketball guy, and he thought it was a just outstanding game to watch just from a competitive standpoint. And when you're sitting there and you watch these guys on both teams try to guard each other, when I saw Mark foul out right in front of me on that play on Wade, just how emotionally and physically exhausted he was and devastated he was that he fouled out of that game. You saw, like I said, Henry Coleman fighting for rebounds and loose balls, Pharrell Payne doing the same there late in the game, and just Zurich fighting through all those, there was one missed shot after another there on the stretch for him. It was rough, but he's just battling through it. Like, these dudes all on both sides treated the rivalry the way it was supposed to be. That wasn't just, 50 minutes of basketball. That was Texas A&M and Texas. That was the Aggies and the Longhorns. So they treated it as such. They just played a crap first half, period. And it was 27 points in the first half and some foul trouble and turning the ball over and rush shots. It just wasn't – I thought, just in summary real quick, I thought Texas came out and said, we have got to play way more physical than we normally ever play to play with these guys. And I think it took the Aggies a minute to adjust, too long to adjust to say, okay, they're trying to match us here. We got to take it up a whole nother level, which they did, throughout the second half. But I just, now there's bigger fish to fry than dwelling on losing to Texas, whether that was 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3. There's bigger things to worry about than dwelling on them. I can remember A&M beating Arkansas 3 times in one season a couple of years ago, including here in Nashville. And Arkansas is the team that went on to the Elite Eight. I think that year, if I'm not mistaken, might have been Texas A&M advancing to the SEC tournament title final, losing in round 1 to Penn State, while Arkansas went on to an Elite Eight. Which one would you rather have? This team is going to be defined, by A&M fans, I think, to themselves, like guys like Wade and Andy and Henry and Manny, everybody. They're going to be defined by how they fare in this next tournament that they play in. And that's my question is, how much did yesterday's game affect that? That's a Evangelist question. I disagreed with him and the people that thought if the Aggies won the conference tournament, they wouldn't move up a line to a 2 seed. I know the whole shtick, the whole spiel, and there's definitely truth to it. I've talked to people that are on the inside that, yes, most of that is set by the time these championship games are played. But I also have common sense, and you can't tell me if A&M were to have beaten Texas, Tennessee, say Auburn, and Florida, and have wins over Auburn times 2, Tennessee, and Florida in the last 2 weeks, they wouldn't move up one spot on the seed line. That would have been a top 8 resume, like laughable. So my real question though is, does losing in the first round knock them down to a 4 seed? And I think that should be a legit concern. I think if you made me say what I think will happen, I think they'll keep a 3. But I know Lenardi had them there today. But there's not upsets. There's teams right behind you that can go on runs. But I think they'll keep a 3. I think their year-long resume is such, and to do what they've done in this conference is such, I think they keep a 3 seed. But would any of us be shocked if they dropped to a 4?
No.
Anyone be shocked if the committee put them one spot? And I wouldn't even have a complaint if they do put them at a 4, because they lost their first round tournament game to a team that was a bubble team. But I don't think they'll be there. But I think if they are, they have no one to blame but themselves there, because you'd have put it at 100. If it was at 75%, you would have put it at 100 with the win yesterday to lock in that 3. I still think they stay there. So I don't think that loss is going to affect much in terms of their draw. And I do think, David, that's a significant one spot for obvious reasons. For obvious reasons. Number one, the biggest thing is that number 1. You're playing that 1 seed a whole round earlier, which not only affects how far you can go potentially, but it also, you're giving yourself another round for that 1 seed to get knocked off. A lot of 1 seeds get knocked off in the Sweet 16. I feel like it happens to somebody almost every year. You give yourself an opportunity to have that path. You're less likely to have that clear path when you're a 4-5 than when you're a 3. And I think it's actually a pretty significant difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Billy, when we talk about 2 seeds, having to face a 2 seed, those 2 seeds, some of them are going to be potential 1 seeds because there's so many from the SEC, and not all of them are going to get that opportunity to be a 1 seed. And we're looking at some projections that only have 2 SEC 1 seeds. It'll probably be 3, but there's still some out there that could have 2 of them drop to that 2 seed as well. So, I guess what I'm saying is it almost is to a point. You definitely want to avoid that 4 if you can get to the 3, but the 3 you're potentially also going to be facing a top-notch team as well.
No question about it. I mean, look, you're obviously, as a 3, there's about 6. I'm thinking of Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Duke. I haven't read anything about Cooper Flagg since yesterday. All that happened right as we were going into the gym. So you've got those 5 and probably U of H, and as 6 teams that, to me, could all be. I would consider all of them 1 seeds. I also, David, yesterday notwithstanding, would not consider any of those teams unbeatable for Texas A&M. But it's just what we saw yesterday it's kind of like it was a kind of a combination of the concerns. They missed 19 3-pointers.
Billy?
David?
Did I lose you? I said yes.
No, I said, I didn't hear you. I said, what did they miss? Was it 19? Was that the number?
I'm pulling up I thought it was 19.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Almost 23 pointers missed. And too many free throws missed. And that long, low-scoring stretch by the offense. And these are the 3 things that if you ask anybody, right? If you ask just about anybody,
19.
Those would have been, if you ask anybody, those would be the 1, 2, and 3 on your list of concerns to say, hey, when they do get knocked out, it's going to involve some combination of this. And that's the scary part about yesterday's game. They've got to come out and build some momentum. But look, 99% of the teams going into this tournament are by definition they're going in after a loss. They're ending their regular season with a disappointing loss, and then they're going to go into the tournament. So I don't like losing. I like these tournaments are fun to be at and to watch, and I would have loved to go watch Texas A&M play Tennessee today. I'm going to go here in a little bit and watch Ole Miss and Auburn, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the Kentucky game tonight. I think that's going to be a fun one. And then you got Bama as the nightcap. Fun day of basketball, and I'm pissed off that A&M's not a part of it. I saw some of the players and coaches when they were leaving yesterday. Obviously, they're not happy about it. But, I think maybe getting a little extra rest won't be the worst thing for this basketball team. My ideal scenario, David, in my head as far as rest was like maybe if they played 2 games, maybe if they beat Texas and lost a battle to Tennessee. I mean, once that game tipped off, I'd want to beat Tennessee and get the extra. But realistically, if you took emotion out of it, I would have thought a couple games here, go home, rest your legs. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe this team needed the break. If I was disappointed with anything yesterday, it was probably the turnovers.
Yep.
It was probably the turnovers because you gave Texas so many chances that they didn't deserve to have. And in that first half, I thought they were playing great half-court defense, like lockdown, terrific. You let them get about, I don't know how many buckets were direct result of either quick bad shots or turnovers.
Billy, I got to drop it there because we're going to run into the next hour break. So thank you. Talk to you soon. I'll talk to you on Sunday.
All right, let's look forward to listening to the baseball bunch.
Yes, sir. TexAgs Live. We'll be back. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 3 of the program, switching it around. We got the baseball bunch guys in the house, Ryan Brauninger, Richard Zane, and Scott Clendenin here in studio. Gentlemen, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Howdy.
So we did a lot of basketball. That was an interesting howdy. So we're going to definitely stay on baseball this hour. I just kind of want to get a sense for, usually we start here about a feel for the team, but I want to get a feel, not only for the feel for the team, but a feel for maybe the confidence that hopefully they developed under this recent stretch. Scotty, you start us off.
Well, I think that, you learned what your lineup was going to be. You knew with their injury situation where you were going to be. That opened the doors for some guys, and they had to take advantage of it. A level of play at some positions led to some changes. But I think that, as much as anything is, you get a chance to restart this week. And I think we saw that, a couple times here in the last 3 years where the opening of conference is, like a new start to this team. And they understand, they're veteran enough to understand that, what goes on weekends from now on determines where they end up. Midweeks are important for, overall, but what happens in conference weekends determines where you are, especially in this league. And playing game by game to win each game is, a challenge. And you have enough guys on this team that have been through that. They will be ready to, I think turn it to the point where this is where we have to concentrate. These 9 innings are the most important 9 innings we can play.
Richard?
Yes, to Scott's point about learning, we're learning a lot about this team, but we still haven't learned enough, right? There's too many unknowns, too many question marks surrounding this ball club to even say that we know who they are, what their identity is, and that's still going to emerge as you go throughout the conference gauntlet, this slate that begins later tonight. But, you're starting to see some signs about who they are, right? The shaved heads is starting to catch on. The offensive approach has been better. They're starting to play better defense, and they can really hang their hat on starting pitching, and that's what's going to make this team, I think, a force in every game they play because it's going to begin and end with starting pitching.
I believe that we have seen Mike Early get more confident as well. I think we've seen his identity grow as a head coach, and he said in here yesterday, David, and me, you, and Richard, after he left, we all said that was the best he's been with us. Yeah. And you made a comment off air, which I think we probably should have saved for on air, but that looked like the Mike Early that you had known as the assistant coach, the guy that we used to interact with in the gym.
Right.
There's more confidence, there's more swagger. That just comes from time in the saddle, and I think that will only improve the longer that he coaches. But maybe it's, I think it's human nature whenever you see preseason number 1 and all these guys coming back off of last year's team that you think that it's going to be seamless transition.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't like that, especially when you add in the injuries. They didn't play well for about 10, 11 days. If you go back and look at the calendar, about 10, 11 days, they were actually really poor. And Coach Early has to figure out how to deal with all that. And in the moment, it's probably hard. But as you just keep doing it and you keep doing it, you find your own identity as a coach. And after he came in here and sat with us, he went on a podcast with D1 Baseball. And from what I was told, they were blown away by his kind of, I guess, emerging confidence and swagger in the seat. And that's just going to come with time in the saddle. Like I said, you go look at Rob Childress's tenure. By the time he was done at Texas A&M, how many years had he been here, Scotty? 16, 17?
17 years.
And then the previous head coach comes in. He had been in the chair for 22 years when he came here. Mark Johnson had been in the chair for a long time before he was let go. Mike Early, this is his first time to do this stuff. Yeah. He's going to get better about how to deal with ups and downs in a season, how to deal and how to form his own identity as a head coach. We're watching it happen. And so I think a little bit more patience with him will also pay off in the long run. But it's just been, I thought it was refreshing yesterday.
I agree. And look, I'm going to use a very bad example, but I think one that we can all kind of understand and resonate with. I had been a broadcaster for a long time before I got to TexAgs, but feeling comfortable in this chair took time, and I had been doing it for a long time. So, and the expectations of filling in for a guy or coming in after a guy who did it for a long time. Schloss had a lot of success. He's got the same group. He's coming in and trying. So I understand the transition part. We still want to see the results, but we all have had new roles. You're laughing.
Nothing.
Oh, about transitions, like where we have to you have to learn in the saddle, as you said. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, I'll share it off there.
Okay.
I think you're right. When Mark Johnson replaced Tom Chandler, he had been an assistant coach here. A kind of a head coach in waiting kind of situation. It wasn't exactly the same, but he was a younger guy who had skins on the wall as an assistant and was well respected in the game, and that's very similar. You look at Rob Childress, who came in for the exact same thing. Bill Byrne talked about being co-head coaches at Nebraska to replace Dave Van Horn. It's just I chose the guy that had been, at Nebraska longer. It could have been either one. So you had guys that were, in a different situation than the previous coach coming in. You have to have a chance to, under live fire, learn what your guys have done. And if you have confidence that you have started to see that emerge, then that's going to carry on to your person. You're going to feel better about your team and what you're doing because you have confidence that they're going to be able to get the job done. And I think that that's a refreshing thing. He's about to start a conference gauntlet. You bring in the best team you've played this year into your place, and he feels, from everything you've observed about him, as he feels like, hey, I'm in a closer place to where I need to be. And I think that's a positive, and the team will feed off of that. The team can see that, hey, he's like he was in the fall. He's like he was in the early spring. He went through this rough patch just like we did and came out on the other side about their starting confidence, believing in us. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to put up a facade for that. I think that you getting a read on him, that's what he thinks about this team getting ready to take on Alabama in the SEC opener.
I think it was absolutely outrageous that the fan base and the message boards have, after 16 games, after 12 games, whatever it was, are ready to sell it off and get rid of him. That was insane. Unfair to him, unfair to the ball club. Just have some perspective, right? He's a first-time head coach. He's got an insanely talented team. We know that we knew going into it. We told you going into it there was going to be a learning curve. They were going to take some lumps. Now, did we expect them to take some lumps that early in the year? Probably not, but it happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're a less talented team than they were in December, no
absolutely.
doubt.
Sure.
Without Sorrell, Grahovic, and Stewart, you cannot argue that they are of the same. We've said it before, David. If you go into the year, if all these preseason prognostications are made, knowing that Sorrell's going to miss at least half the season, Grahovic's going to miss 99% of the season, and Stewart's going to miss a month and a half, is this the preseason number one?
No, I don't think it is.
No.
And how many teams in the country in the SEC could absorb the loss of 2 first-round position players and their closer?
Not many.
And
maybe LSU, maybe Arkansas, maybe Tennessee, the teams at the top. But even still, if you take off Dean Curley and you take off, pick one of those guys at the top of the Tennessee order, Hunter Ensley, you take them out of the lineup. And
take 2 of them out of the lineup.
Yeah, right. And then you take out one of their back-end arms. Is Tennessee the same?
No.
No way.
So I think that the perspective can be that now the team knows who they are. They know who's going to be on. And when you add those guys in, you're adding in something that makes you better. But you know where you are now. You know where those guys are in the positions. Farr thought he was going to play some second base. Okay, he did not know that he was going to play second base every day to be the guy. Terrence Keel knew that he was going to play, but he knew that he was going to be in a role that is completely different than what his role is now because of injuries. Now they have to go through that and learn it, and they have. And now they're much better this week than they were the previous 3 weeks. And I think that is the key when you're talking about replacing a talent level wise with guys that are now getting their feet under them, that they can understand what the position is that I'm going to be put in, and this team can get closer to where the optimum of this roster that can play actually is.
So here's a text that came in from Zach. How long did it take Tony Vitello to get through similar growing pains at Tennessee? It was Vitello's first to do that, if I remember, for Tennessee. And I'm looking at it. His first year was 29-27. 40-21 the next year, 15-2 because it was a shortened year, and then we know what's happened since then. So he was 6th in the East that year.
And that was, kind of what I think when the hire was made, obviously the roster retention, but they also thought that as a young coach, they could be setting them up. For the most part, in recent Texas A&M baseball history, nobody knows this more than Scott, head coaches stick around here for a while.
Yes.
The last guy notwithstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hire Mike Early, I think the high end, what you're expecting is like he's your Tony Vitello. He's a young guy that you're taking a chance on, just like Tennessee took a chance on Tony. And you think over the course of the next 6, 8, 10 years, he's going to be your head baseball coach and get your and maintain the level of your program in the long term. Again, it will all come down to winning and losing games. Nobody knows that more than Mike Early. But like to Richard's point, for you to make a definitive decision on the guy 12, 15 games into his tenure, that's crazy. It's no different than people wanting to run out Mike Elko after 8-5.
Yeah.
Like you may end up being right, and there's a part of me that believes that those people that are complaining the loudest, they'd rather be right about being negative than actually like have to swallow their pride and A&M win games. They would rather be right than see A&M win. That's my opinion on some of them. But I may be way off base there.
Coming off a Final Four appearance 2 years ago, A&M was 5th ranked with talent coming back. You didn't know what was going to happen injury-wise. When they started conference, they were the 15th ranked team in the country. That's where they started conference. Now, who did they see the first time out of the blush? Well, they're not going to see Paul Skeens tonight. So then you had LSU that eventually won the national championship come to this place. Alabama may turn out to be that good. Alabama may end up winning a national championship. You don't know that until the end of the year, okay? But they're not walking in with a generational talent on the mound that you have to get your feet wet against. And there were some new guys in that lineup that day that you didn't expect were going to be in the lineup. And that team at the end of the year were outs away from going to super regional play. But there was a highly ranked team that had to adjust to things during the season. And the difference between the number of games that the head coach had won then and the one now was the only difference in those two guys. And how this team comes together and pushes it through is what the determining factor on how good this ball club became is from this point forward.
And the biggest difference between this team and the 2023 team is the starting pitching. You remember that 2023 group was the pitching was a mess all year.
Yeah, exactly.
They set a school record for walks. Outside of Evan Aschenbeck, there really wasn't anything you could hang your hat on up and down the pitching staff. Now, they got some key performances at times from Nathan Detmer, Will Johnson, all those guys. But this team, you feel like even through the struggles, you're going to go, those 3 starters are going to give them a chance every time they go out.
And I think the 2022 team didn't have much pitching either.
Right. But I think that if you talk to coaches and you said you could have this or you could have 3 starters like this, the vast majority of them is going to give me 3 guys on the weekend that can go out and do what these 3 guys can do.
I think if you have to ask, if you polled head coaches, give me the 3 main aspects you'd love to have on your team to give you the best chance at winning games over the course of a season, a lot of games. Number 1, I think, would be elite starting pitching. I think that's where you would start. Number 2, I need to catch the baseball. I don't have to be elite defensively, but I need to catch the baseball when it's hit at me. I think that would be in the top 3. And number 3, if you're looking at offense, I don't think it has to do anything with talent. I think you want a confident offense. So if you're asking me as a coach, give me 3 elements of the team that you want to have. I want to have elite starting pitching. I want to be okay defensively, just catch it when it's hit at me, make the routine plays. And I want to have a confident offense. It doesn't have to be a talented offense. It's a confident offense. And one of the things that I love that Coach Early sat there and said to us yesterday is said, this is different. We can't just slug anymore because when you take the production of Sorrell and Grahovic out of the order, it changes the identity in terms of I shouldn't say identity. It changes the tool set of your lineup. No question about it. I think Terrence Keel Jr. can play baseball for a long time, and he could be drafted in the top couple rounds. I feel the exact same way about Sawyer Farr. I think the ceiling on both of those kids is day one MLB draft selections. Would anybody argue that?
No.
So they can get to the realm of Grahovic and Sorrell, but they ain't there yet. And Sorrell and TK are different players, and Farr and Gavin are different players. But I think there's still going to be some learning curve and some bumps along the way for those true freshmen. But I love that Coach Early said, like, we have to get on base. We have to get on base more because the slug is going to be down with the injuries.
So when teams play with a low heartbeat, how much of that is the experience and how much of that is the guy up top who kind of sets the tone?
It's a mixture of both. I think the game slows down when you're confident in what you're doing and you're not second guessing. And if you go back and look at the at-bats offensively from really the Cal Poly series all the way through the Oklahoma State game in Houston, that entire week of worth of games, it looked way different aesthetically. And you could tell these guys were sped up by the number of chases they were having, the number of bad contacts they were having. And you go back, and we talked about this, David, the Sunday game against Cal Poly that they lost late, they scored 2 runs, and they went like 13, 14, 15 consecutive hitters retired where they weren't hitting anything on the barrel. Nothing.
Yeah.
It was separated swings off the end of the bat, rolled ground balls. They put 0 pressure on Cal Poly in that game. That is a vastly different offense to the one that lost 4-1 in New Mexico State.
Right.
Vastly different.
Yep.
And so that's why that loss to New Mexico State, it stings because you played so poorly previously, but you digest it better on the other end because like, what did we do wrong? Whereas you go back and look at Cal Poly, you're like, oh, we kicked it around on defense and we were awful at the plate. So again, like you have to, especially when you're not playing well, you got to look for signs of life and arrows pointing in the right direction. We've seen that for the better part of 10 days.
And Rice is not Oklahoma State, but you got away from it the next day. There was a change in their approach and what they wanted to do, and it was different. It was different the first time through, and then how about that? Then Caden Kemp ambushes the second time through and hits that huge home run, and hey, what we wanted to do, our plan worked. And that was the important part of that. And I think that was a big change that you see carry on through this.
And even that next Tuesday loss against UTSA drove in 5 runs in that game on combined exit velos of 160-something miles an hour. So 2 balls in the 80s, that means it's not hit well,
right.
Drove in 5 runs for UTSA in that game. A&M was terrible on defense, 5 errors. That spurred the change in the defensive shuffling and where you see Cash at first. And they walked and hit a bunch of batters, guys in the midweek. So it's hard for you to get upset about the game kind of biting you against UTSA because you were so awful in the other areas. If you play clean baseball, you throw strikes and you play clean defense, and you're getting good swings off, the results are the results. You got to be happy with the approach to it.
All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back with more. Moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. They have a great selection of commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. And you know this about Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're locally owned and operated by Aggie alumni. They have complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers, and they have free oil changes on the life of your purchase as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They are a proud supporter of Aggie Athletics. You'll see them at all the events. And they have a strong, committed sales staff with many years of experience satisfying customer needs. They are the premier dealer for your commercial needs and your personal needs. Come to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. It's not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes. The edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. Another guy that I went on the mound tonight to try to get that first series win than Ryan Brauninger. The whole staff, I'm looking through some of these game notes. Brauninger, 0.39 ERA. You've got Lampkin, who's getting close to the 200 club. Miles Patton's been great. Let's just spend some time. I know we've brushed on it, but let's talk a little bit about how they've looked. Bronny, start us off.
Yeah, one thing that I think it's safe to say about this starting rotation is that their demeanor is it's almost identical through each and every guy. Like, they don't get too high, too low. You know, if Miles Patton or Justin Lampkin especially, if they give you any positive emotion coming off the mound, such as a fist pump, you're like, wow, that's that guy being really energetic. And
like what we saw from Brauninger after that 7th inning in Houston. There's like, he's like nodding his head. It's like, what is this? Who is this guy?
But obviously, they're all elite strike throwers, and that's one thing that if you look at the pitching metrics across the SEC, A&M, I think, is 4th in overall pitching. But when you look at starting pitching, they were number 2 in terms of ERA, strike-to-ball ratio, strike-out-to-walk ratio. Metrically, the starters are elite in this league, and that means you're elite in the country. And I don't think that surprises us, given what we knew about Brauninger. Lampkin has really – we wondered that in the offseason. Like, he's got to take the confidence he found in Omaha and bring it into this season, and he has. And then Miles Patton was kind of the wild card, but I wouldn't listen to Rob Vaughn, the head coach at Alabama. I went and listened to his press conference yesterday. He was talking about the A&M rotation, and he spoke very highly of Miles Patton. He's like, that's a kid we recruited really hard. We wanted him. We knew how good he was going to be. And so seeing Miles kind of just take the mantle from Brauninger and Lampkin into Sunday and just keep filling up the strike zone has been really, really good. And so, this right now, it is the best part of the A&M ball club is the starting pitching, no question.
Absolutely, not even close. These three guys combined 2.08 ERA, obviously headlined by Prager's 0.39 mark. I think, Bronny, we were discussing through their 12 combined starts, 11 of them would have probably qualified for being a quality start had they not been pulled earlier in the first couple of weeks due to pitch count, stuff like that. These guys give you a chance to win each and every single game they start. And that's going to be huge when you see the better offenses against the SEC.
Like tonight.
And they've got one of the best ones, headlined by Justin LeBron. But Coach Early sat here yesterday, and one of the things he said about this starting pitching is, yes, they've done it against teams like Elon and Cal Poly. They're not world beaters by any stretch of the imagination, but they're doing it by filling up the strike zone with stuff that plays. And that's important. It's going to play against the higher-end offenses just as it has against the non-conference schedule. So that's what should give you some confidence. And to your point about Miles Patton, even in this league where the starting pitching is as elite as it is anywhere in the country, he's still not a traditional number 3 guy in the weekend rotation, and that's going to give you a chance to win a number of series if you got to go to a rubber match with Miles Patton on the bump.
Well, and I also think that when you look at the matchups this week, I mean, Alabama's not feeling bad about their starting pitching in any stretch of the imagination. It's the reason why they're off to the 17-1 start that they're on. But you look at Zane Adams, doesn't look numbers-wise like what you get from Ryan Brauninger. Riley Quick, that's a little bit more comparable to Justin Lampkin. Then you go to Sunday, Miles Patton and Bobby Elcock is 2-0 with a 5.5 ERA. They've had Sunday being run day, and their offense has been explosive enough to give that guy a chance to get his feet out for under him. So he's probably a little bit better than those numbers are with his confidence because he thinks, hey, I've got guys behind me that are going to score some runs. Or are you going to score runs against this offense? I mean, against this pitching staff. And that's going to be the first time that Alabama sees 3 guys that are going to run their out there like this. When, NC State is a 4-0 game. Then they play a 3-1 game against Troy, who's gets up for them. I mean, that's a state rivalry. So against some of the better teams, yes, their offense did come down. It wasn't like it was against some of their other opponents. And A&M is going to be even better than anybody they've seen. It's going to if good pitching and great pitching is good hitting or great hitting. A&M walks to the mound thinking these are going to be games that we're in that we can win because of our starting pitching.
I don't disagree at all. And I think when you look at the overall presentation of the stuff on Bama's staff, the radar gun is going to be in their favor. But that we know now that matters less than it has over the last 5 to 10 years of college baseball because everybody sees velocity. And Ryan Prager is going to throw 88 to 90, 91, and he consistently gets guys out. We saw it with Evan Oschenbeck. So I think if you look at just raw arm talent, Bama would be the side you would lean toward in that matchup, just raw arm talent. But pitch ability, getting guys out is what matters. That's where I think A&M has the advantage, and especially like in the experience and guile department of understanding of what this league is from Ryan Prager and Justin Lampkin, how to pitch in this league, the kind of spine and backbone it takes to pitch in this league because you're going to get your nose bloodied to just keep firing it in there. Where Zane Adams is a kid from New Caney, really, really talented, but his splits are pretty interesting. His left-handers hit him better than right-handers because the changeup is such an out pitch for him. It makes him tough on right-handers. Riley Quick is going to remind you stuff-wise of Chris Cortez. I mean, it's a big arm. It'll be 95 to 100, 91 to 93 mile-an-hour breaking ball slider, hard slider. It's big stuff, big stuff. And so you look at that, you're like, wow, that can overwhelm you. But does he throw it in the strike zone? And this A&M team, I think they'll be fine with the velocity. I mean, a lot of these guys have seen really good arms for their entirety of their college career. So I don't think they'll get intimidated or overwhelmed by big numbers on the radar gun. Like, you're going to have to pitch to get them out, especially if the offense has turned a corner in terms of their quality of at bat and the quality of their ball striking.
The other thing about Riley Quick is he's got that 1.76 ERA. It's a nice number. He's thrown 15 of the third innings in 4 starts, so he's not getting deep into ball games at all. So it might be really impressive.
Who's
on the
that
radar
remind you
gun.
of?
Yeah.
It's Cortez.
But I also think that Cortez was still almost all the time more than a strikeout an inning. And I look at this pitching staff, and they're a little bit less or maybe a strikeout an inning. And if you're not going to punch out A&M on a team that wants to get on base now and is looking to get on base as the offense has to evolve, then you've got guys that are, by not missing bats, by too many free passes, they're only getting a strikeout an inning. That's a big key, that you're not 1.5 or a little bit higher. I mean, when you look at what Justin Lampkin does, 33 and 23 innings is a little bit more on the other side when you're like, this guy's a strikeout pitcher. Now, he's not going to throw it as hard as what Alabama is, because he doesn't have to. And I think that's a big key for this weekend.
Well, I do want to, on the other side of the break, I do want to talk about the A&M offense and like where can they make their hay this weekend and going forward? And potentially, I think there's still a lineup shakeup that could happen when you're looking at going forward in SEC and trying to maximize run scoring opportunities.
That's the tease, folks. All right, when we come back, we'll get into that. Right now, Heritage Films. We had Royce Hickman in the studio yesterday who did the fan show, and he just did a Heritage film. He's like, David, everything you said about it was exactly that. It's a cool experience. He became buddies with Chance. Chance interviewed Royce and his wife, and his family all set it up. They had a fabulous time telling his life story, their life story together. And they'll get that here in about 6 weeks or so. But he's super excited about what it's going to look like because he liked the process. He thought it was very therapeutic, and it was also something that brought the family together. And that's something you can do when you reach out to Chance McClain and get these 2-hour documentaries. They're awesome. You can watch them as a family together, and I think you'll have a very powerful moment. You can do it. You can watch it later. You can watch it now. It'll be something that the next generation will certainly cherish. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. You can call Chance up right now at 713-893-8341. 713-893-8341. It's Heritage Films. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 3, coming close to an end, but we got still the baseball bunch, guys. All right, Ronnie, you had such an eloquent tease that I don't know how to get into it, but there was 2 levels. One, potential lineup, wrinkles we could see, and also where this offense can go. So I'll let you take it from there.
You always hesitate to shuffle because they are trending in the right direction and guys have started to kind of settle into roles. But the idea of, so Terrence Kiel II, at some point he's hitting he's hitting 410, 420, leading the team in average, got a bunch of hits. At some point you go, well, does he need to be moved up in the order? And I think a lot of people are looking at the way he runs and going, should he hit leadoff or second? He could. Certainly he could. The reason why I don't think that's the spot where he would move up to is because if you end a game with Jace Lavalette and Wyatt Hensler on deck when they could be in those spots hitting, so if you hit TK second where Jace had been hitting and you move Jace down and you move Wyatt down, you're taking you're taking a bat away from potentially from Jace and Wyatt in late game scenarios. I think you'd be kicking yourself if that happened at least more than once, right? And so, but where I do think you could see TK move up is into the 4-hole. Right. Now, not a traditional 4-hole, but we know now that this lineup is not going to be traditionally like what we thought it was going to be. TK is getting a bunch of hits. Jace Lavalette and Wyatt Hensler are getting on base a bunch. If you'll remember, after the injury last year to Braden Montgomery, do you remember who hit in the 4-hole? Hayden Schott.
Yeah.
What did Hayden Schott do a lot of? Got a bunch of hits, right? And it's because there were guys on base in front of him, it made Schott really productive as a 4-hole hitter. He wasn't hitting a bunch of doubles and homers. Neither is TK.
Right.
So
that's the kind of line of thinking.
And Gavin Cash making big strides toward what we thought he was going to be. If you flip TK and Gavin Cash, what does it really do for your run production standpoint if TK is going to be on base as much as he is? TK is getting hits. Cash is getting hits. If I hit TK in front of Cash, when Cash runs into a ball into the gap, it's probably a run if TK's on base because of how he's able to get around the base paths. So I'm just looking at scenarios of potential lineup switches. I think also determining what's going to happen at catcher long term will influence at least the back half of the order. Hayden Schott taking steps in the right direction this week was encouraging. Getting him back to his old self would be massive for this club. And then just when you look at like the 7, 8, 9, I love Jacob Galloway's at-bats. I think he's been one of the more unlucky guys on the roster. When you look at his quality of at-bats, his quality of his swings, his batting average does not match that. So I think there's some real luck on his side coming. And Sawyer Farr, you're just going to have to ride the ups and downs. I really think like he's going to be your second baseman. He's going to play when he's red hot and going the best he can. He's another extra base hit spot in your order. And so, the 8-hole or the 7-hole with Yamal, does Sam Erickson get a run out because Sam Erickson can really hit? Yamal has got to be a little bit more consistent. He was great Tuesday night, had nothing to show for it, but scalded 3 balls. That was more encouraging to see from Yamal. And Yamal's played good defense in right field. So I think 7, 8, 9 is really kind of however you want to put it right now until one of those guys starts settling into exactly what they're going to be long term. I like Jacob Galloway in the 9-hole because he gets on base.
And I think you have an anchor with what Caden Kent has gone to the leadoff because of injury and just mashed. It's like when he got inserted last year into the lineup. Okay, he went to where he's comfortable, where he's playing with confidence, and he continues to rake. And that is huge for this team because if you have an anchor at 1, 2, and 3, and that's what it is, and that's your anchor, does it matter that it's 1, 2, and 3, that it's not 2, 3, and 4, or it's not 3, 4, and 5? I don't think it does because when those guys come up, they're there to where, hey, I know what the guy in front of me is going to do. I'm watching and learning when they're attacking him. Those guys have played, and had such success in their careers now that they are anchors. So I think that whatever happens around that, maybe you can do something like that. But if there's the key is to have people on so Caden Kent becomes the RBI guy, and that's what you had last year. was at the bottom of the lineup. They were on base, so you could get those guys driven home. And that's where Coach Early's saying we have to have guys on base. That's a key. Have them on base in front of your anchors.
The top third of the lineup's been fantastic. Caden Kent and Wyatt Hensler are the only two dudes that have OPSs above 1,000. They don't need to move. They seem comfortable in those roles. I know a lot is being made about Jace Lavalette slumping. He's not. We know that. We're seeing the numbers from StatCast or TrackMan, whatever. We know Jace is going fine. He's had to deal with elements. He's missed a couple of balls by a fraction of an inch. He's fine. He's not slumping. Brawny knows what that looks like when he is slumping. The thing about roster construction today is it's not traditional baseball anymore. So while Terrence Keel looks like your prototypical traditional leadoff hitter from the last 20, 30 years, that's not what it's about anymore. It's about getting your best guys the most at-bats that you possibly can. And if Terrence Keel can be a solid bat-to-ball guy, contact hitter like we've seen early on in his college career, then he's going to be a weapon in the middle of that order, despite what you think of having your biggest power bat in the 4 spot. That's not the way you think about baseball anymore. Yeah. It's not the way it happens.
Well, you also, if you get in a situation where, Scott, I think you're correct. 1, 2, and 3 ain't changing. It's going to be those 3 guys until the cows come home. There's going to something drastic going to have to happen where it's not Caden Kent, Jace Lavalette, Wyatt Hensler. I think after that is where you can have some shuffling up and down. And what TK also provides is a mitigation for double plays in those scenarios, right? Because when he hits the ball on the ground, even when he hits it hard, what was it, against was it Texas Southern maybe? I mean, he hit a rocket, or maybe New Mexico State, hit a rocket at the second baseman on a 1-hop with a man on first, and it was bang, bang at first base on a double play. So, like, you staying out of multi-out scenarios is also beneficial when you got a guy like Cash hitting behind him that can impact the baseball the way he can. So there are some advantages to putting TK in that 4-hole behind that set 1, 2, 3. And, you know, if Shot gets going the way he's capable or Cash continues his trajectory, I still don't think that it would take away from TK's benefit in that role. Because Shot, when he's going good, gets a lot of base hits, but he lives kind of low.
Yeah.
Right? He lives on the ground. He lives kind of low. Where Shot living in that scenario is a double play candidate. TK lives in that same altitude, but he's not a double play candidate.
I got a couple things I want to get into here in the next 3 minutes. First off, let's just each of us give a little 30 seconds on what a win does, a series win does, and what a series loss does for this team moving forward. Ronnie?
I think just continue the confidence of the dugout and make them kind of believe that they are what they're trending towards. I think, you know, from the national perspective, it's like, okay, like that's the A&M we thought we'd see. Yep. But it is a long SEC slate, man, and you can take 2 out of 3 at home against Alabama, then you walk on the road to Vanderbilt, and you can get swept up there just as easily as anything.
Yep.
So each weekend is independent of itself. I think every team in this league, sans maybe Missouri, is talented enough to win every series they play. I think the gap between Tennessee and team number 14 or 15 in the league is closer than it was last year. And so you're going to have some breaks. You're going to have to stay healthy. But I think the A&M pitching staff, like we've said, will give them a chance in every one of these.
The other thing about that is, you talked about going on the road to Vanderbilt next weekend. It makes playing a home series to kick off SEC play that much more important. You got to take advantage of your opportunities at home and survive on the road. So that's why, taking 2 out of 3 from the Crimson Tide this weekend is a big deal, and you've got the pitching staff to help you do it.
In this league, you win your home series, you don't get swept on the road. That is a recipe for success to be an NCAA tournament host. Now, we haven't seen this yet. I mean, now this league is even better. We're seeing it happen in basketball. You win your home games, you are competitive, and when you win a sweep, when you look back at the midpoint of the season, the teams that are going to be at the top of the standings are the ones that occasionally won on the road and won a series. That's how this league is designed to chew you up. And if you get to the middle and you're at the mean, it's not that you haven't played a good baseball. you have done what you needed to do, which is win home series and don't get swept on the road. When you get out of whack on the road, it's so very hard to get that other game back at home because everybody, we'll see at some point in time, teams are going to pitch backwards. Caglione never pitched on a Friday. Why? I feel pretty good about that guy and his stuff being there on a Sunday if I'm Florida. All of these coaches go through how they attack a weekend. Maybe they're going to match somebody's one up on a Saturday when we're going to get a two. So that's how you have to do it. You have to win your home series, and it starts this weekend, and they will feel much better about themselves if they do it.
Got to drop it there, Bronny. Just give me the final thought. Who's somebody to look out for this weekend?
I like the way. Give me Gavin Cash and Hayden Schott. I'm really keeping an eye on those two. If the top three are going how they've been going, I think, or really top four if you're going to put TK in there, I think Cash and Schott coming up big would go a long way toward their chances of winning the weekend.
Cool. Thank you, Bronny. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you very much. Priorities matter. God, family, and country is what Rollo Insurance is all about. It's not just what they do. It's the kind of people that they are there at the Rollo Insurance Group. And they want you to free yourself from the fatigue of corporate gamesmanship, restore your confidence in the value of a relationship-centered consultation where you can reach out to your insurance agent about whatever needs that you have, and they will take care of you like they've done my family and many others that work here at TexAgs. They've got 60 offices in the great state of Texas, but remember, their headquarters is right here in College Station on Highway 6. You can call them up at 888-44-ROLLO. That's 888-44-ROLLO. Or go to rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. That's rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Time for Around Aggieland, presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. The website is normandstatebank.com. And we've got Kay Naegeli.
We just ended off with the baseball bunch, so I'm just going to repeat basically everything they just said. SEC play has arrived for Michael Early's number 19 Aggies as they are prepared to host Rob Vaughn's number 17 Crimson Tide for a 3-game set starting tonight at 6 p.m. Game 2 is scheduled for Saturday at 2, and then Sunday's finale is 4 p.m. A little bit of a different time. Should be a good series over at Bluebell. On the softball front, number 6 Texas A&M is set for its first SEC Road Series. Trisha Ford's Aggies will face number 22 Auburn. SEC play for softball is just absolutely ridiculous. They will have a gauntlet ahead and hoping they can get their first conference series. That is a 3-game set starting tonight at 5 p.m. at Jane B. Moore Field. Basketball, talked a lot about it, but Wade Taylor poured in a season-high 29 points to become the SEC tournament's all-time leading scorer. But Texas A&M dropped the contest in Nashville in double overtime to the Texas Longhorns, 94-89 on Thursday. Buzz Williams and co. are now looking to await their seeding in the NCAA tournament, either looking at a 3, a 4, a lot of discussion there. Be sure to be tuned in all weekend as we will provide plenty of content on that front. I want to talk some track and field. They travel to Virginia Beach Sports Center for the indoor season finale at the NCAA Indoor Championships, March 14th through 15th. The Aggies took a group of 23 to the national championships. We have a thread on our boards that is following that. Hopefully the men's side can find more success, and as well as the women. On the tennis front, the women's team will take on Missouri and number 16 Vanderbilt over the weekend to end a 4-match road stint. The men's team will host Alabama to round out a 2-week homestand on Friday with its first serve set for 6 p.m. Men's golf, a late charge by the number 24 Texas A&M Aggies came up shy as the Aggies finished second in the 40th Louisiana Classic. They will return to action on March 24th and 25th, heading to Palm Beach, Florida. Women's golf placed third in the Clover Cup in Arizona, and they will return to action at the Charles Schwab Invitational in Fort Worth. And then last but not least, the Aggie equestrian team heads to the Tyrone International Equestrian Center in Mill Spring, North Carolina for the SEC Championships. That will be March 28th through the 29th.
Thank you, KK. Appreciate you.
Of course.
Have a great weekend. All right. So you know how my brother asked me yesterday, what do you think, man? Are we a 4 seed now or a 5 seed? I said, nah, I mean, most projections have us as a 3 seed. But you know, like when they say the camera adds 10 pounds, committees drop you a seed line. So when it's all said and done, whatever we think they're going to be, I would not be surprised if the committee, even if everybody's got us into the NCAA tournament at this seed or that seed, typically we're underwhelmed. Will we be overwhelmed with happiness because of our draw on Monday? Or it'll be Sunday, but when we rejoin you on Monday. I don't know. Nick, where are you on that?
I'm going to go no. I'm going to go no on that. History tells us no, so I'm going to go no.
So you're saying the camera adds 10 pounds. Thanks very much, Nick. Appreciate you very much. All right. That's going to do it for TexAgs Live on a Friday. Keep it with TexAgs.com over the weekend. Luke will have some content. I think Dawson's working on some stuff. Olin's working on stuff. Maybe even Billy and myself will get together and do some fun stuff on Sunday. So that'll do it. We'll see you on Monday.